Hiya, I'm Rebecca Betts, and just here to go through my sort of short little tutorial. Going to do it with an introduction to Latin cases. So, of course, I know, depending on the student and their sort of prior knowledge, I'm kind of doing this tutorial on the assumption that they've sort of had some exposure to it before, but might not necessarily know, sort of might be something that they're struggling with. And so this would be more of a sort of consolidatory thing. Okay, so obviously Latin is an inflected language, which means that it's the endings of its words change depending on the sort of what that word is doing in the sentence. So if it's a verb, it's going to have different endings depending on its tense, number of other things. But for now, we'll focus on nouns. So nouns change depending on what case they are. So we've got 5 main cases. There are a couple of others that aren't used sort of as widely in Latin. So we'll focus on the main sort of 5 cases for now. So we've got the nominative, the accusative, the genitive, the dative, and the ablative. So to kind of run through exactly what that all means. So the nominative is the subject of the sentence. So it is the sort of main focus of the sentence. It's everything else will sort of relate to it in some way, if that makes sense. You've then got the accusative, which is the object of the sentence. So if you've got a sort of very simple sentence using nominative, accusative, verb, you could say Becky is recording a lesson. Becky would be the subject, and I am the subject of that verb because I am the one doing the recording, and a lesson would be the object because that is what is, the object of that verb. So that would be your sort of means to creating, the most sort of basic, simplest of sentences. You've then got the genitive case, which denotes possession. So if I said, Becky's dog, then the dog would be the sort of subject, and Becky would go into the genitive because I'm the one possessing. So if you kind of look at it with an of, sometimes that's a bit more helpful. So the dog of Becky, the of is the part of the sentence that is possessive. And so the dog would of course be the subject. So you've also got the dative, which is used to show an indirect object. So quite difficult to explain, but easier to look at in some of the example sentences that I've put below. You've also then got the ablative, which shows sort of means and manner. Or place, or it can be used with a number of other sort of prepositions as well. So it's kind of the way in which something is done, or by what means, in what manner something is done. But again, we'll have a look at these example sentences. So with this first sentence, the dog barked at the man's cat. So we've got the dog, and that is the subject of the sentence, and that is because it is the subject of the verb. It's what the verb is relating to. So the dog is the nominative in the sentence. You've then got the dog barked at the man's cat. So the man's, as you can see, we've obviously got an apostrophe here, and we know that that's a possessive apostrophe in English. So if we again flip the sentence slightly so that it's the dog barked at the cat of the man, it starts to become slightly easier to understand that the cat is the object of the sentence and the man is in the genitive. That's the possessive because he is the one that possesses the cat, and the cat is the direct object of the verb. So if we have a look at the second sentence again, we've got the slave, which again, subject of the sentence, it's the subject of the verb, often the easiest way to look at it. And again, so we've got his master's dinner. So his master's, again, we've got that possessive apostrophe in English. So if we kind of sort of look at that slightly differently and we say the slave carried the dinner of his master to him. Again, we know that dinner is the direct object of the verb and therefore is going to be in the accusative case, and his master is going to be in the genitive because his master is the one possessing the dinner. So, you know, that's kind of two good examples of how nominative, accusative, and genitive can interact. And then we've also got this final bit here, the to him. And so that is another object in a way of the verb, because the slave is carrying his master's dinner, direct object, to him, indirect object. So that would be using the dative, and that's because it is, of course, an indirect object. So again, with this final sentence, the city, we know that that is the main subject of the verb. And then we come to the by the soldiers. So by the soldiers would be the ablative case, and that's because it's showing the sort of manner in which the city was attacked, or sort of who attacked it. So if we were to say the soldiers attacked the city, that would be quite plain and simple, soldiers in the nominative, and then you would have the city in the accusative. But by adding by switching the sentence round a little bit, saying the city was attacked by the soldiers, you get that that ablative in there that shows the manner in which the city was attacked and sort of who was doing it. So, you know, that's a sort of quite basic run through of how Latin cases work. And of course, you know, this is all in English, but we have to think about how we would spot them all in the in Latin itself. So if we just get rid of these bits, if we just have a look at this table here, it gives us all of the endings that we need. So let me just make that a bit bigger. So nouns obviously have cases, but they also come in different declensions. Now we won't go into too much detail with that, but you can see here we've got the nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative here, and here in the plural as well. So you can see that we have a number of different endings, some of which look very similar, and you can spot some sort of similarities. For instance, in the dative plural, you have a lot of similarities, you know, is here, and then of course ibis here. Again, the genitive plural, arum, aurum, aurum. In the ablative, it's all is. So there are some sort of patterns that make it a little bit easier to recognise, but this is essentially, you know, the basis for nouns in Latin, and how they work is you get the stem of the word. For example, let's say we use servus, meaning slave, and we've got that's a second declension masculine verb. So depending on what case we want to put it in, that would dictate the ending that we use in Latin. So that's a sort of basic introduction to Latin cases. Obviously, if I were, you know, giving the lesson, I would get them to identify, you know, what was going on in each sentence, and we could go through and identify some of the similarities and differences with the noun endings in the table. You know, quite a good sort of little consolidatory lesson. So yeah, thank you very much.